Hello guys, today we're going to be talking about coding basics. So what is coding basics? It might implies, coding basics is basically the basics of coding. So, our first topic is variables. So what are variables? Variables are basically a way to store data in computer science. So let's say you have a variable named, friend. And then you put an equal sign to assign a value to a variable. And then this is what the variable is going to be set to. So what do you want friend to be equal to? So let's say you want friend to be equal to your best friend's name. So I'm just going to say someone like a nickname called A. So A is my friend. You set A as friend. So whenever you call friend now, the value A would come up. And since this is a string type variable, you would have to put quotation marks kind of. So what are the different parts of a variable? So this is the variable name. So var name. This is like the variable body. And then this is a assign operator. Assign operator. And in other languages, there would also be type of variable over here. But in this Python language, there is no type of character or type of variable over here. In another language, you would have to put char here because this is a character. So you'd have to put char and then the friend and then the variable. So you have to put the type of the variable and then the variable. So you would tell the computer what type it is and stuff like that. So you can put almost anything in a variable, but it has to be reasonable. So you can't put entire programs or something really unreasonable into a variable, or else it's gonna come out with an error and stuff like that. So what can you put in variables? So you can put integers, you can put floats, or in normal English it could be called decimals. You can put normal characters or letters basically. You can put individual words, or you can put entire strings. So let's just say words and a Boolean expression. So you might be asking, what's a Boolean? So what is this term? So a Boolean is basically a true or a false. So it's basically something that's true or false is what this thing is right here. So these are what you can put into a variable. But there's also another type of thing that you can put into a variable, which is called none type. So none type is basically a type of variable where there's nothing in it. So what would be in it? Nothing, right? So how would you describe nothing? What would you put in the variable? So you just put the word none in it. Just like if you're putting a Boolean, you put a true with a capital T or false with a capital F. And for words, let's just say you put anything. So you can put Jeff. For characters, let's say you put A. For decimal, say 15.9. And for integer, let's just say 1. You can put anything for any of these as long as it's one of these types. So an example of something that you can't put is a print function. So you can't put an entire function in here. So print, let's say integer. You can't just do that. But what you can do is do something else. You can print a variable inside a print function. But we'll talk about all that later. You can also do many other things with variables, such as you can use a variable, let's just say age, and then you can just set age to what? 15. That's not my actual age, but like you can just say age to 15, and then like the difference of ages. So you can say diff, and then age. So difference of ages is equal to 3. And then let's say you want to find what my sister's age is, or what my sibling's age is. So sibling age, you can just put it as your age, and then the difference is 3, so you can put 15 minus 3. So you can also use assignment operators as sibling age. But if, let's say, your age moves after a while, right? And then your different age stays the same, but your age moves after a while. So let's say you want it just like for you don't have to update all of this again and again. So let's say you have sibling age set as underscore age set as, instead of 15 minus 3, you just put age, since age is basically 15 right now, is assigned to age, and then minus diff age, or difference of ages. You can also use it like this in many other ways. So instead of minus, there's also other kinds of operators. So you can use plus, and like I already said, minus. This is for division. Multiplication is that asterisk symbol. And then there's also so many more. Like if you want to do an exponent, it would just be this symbol and then your exponent, and so on. So done with the sign, like the operators. But what other things can you do with variables? So you can also put parentheses on variables, just like if you were to like emphasize something, like let's say if you do 5 plus 3, right? And then times 15, so that little asterisk symbol. So 5 times 15 plus 3, this is how you can do it. So you emphasize the 15 plus 3, just like if you're doing any other math equation. And instead of these, you can put variables instead. So I already talked about the way to name a variable, the way operators work with variables, and the introduction of a variable. So what is a variable? So what other things are there about variables? Variables can be used throughout the code. So there are actually 2 types of variables that you use like in the entire code. So there is a global variable, which you use through the entire code, and a local variable, which you can only use it in a part of a code. We'll talk about why this happens and how it works later on in the video. So stay tuned and don't miss out. Moving on to our next topic, we're going to be talking about conditional statement with coding basics. So to talk about conditional statements, first we have to talk about comparison operators. So just like normal operators, these are to compare two values. So as you probably learned in math, there are 6 comparison operators in coding. So 6 comparison ops. That sounds like something different, but like 6 comparison ops. Let's just put the dot to make it like shortened version. But 6 comparison operators. So this is less than, this is greater than, this is less than equal to, this is greater than equal to, this is the equal to symbol, since you can't use the normal equal to, because the equal to, oh no, that's confusing. So the equal to is the assigned variable. So the double equal to is the equal, and the not equal to, which you would normally denote by doing this, is instead this. So this is just this, but with the equal to and equal to. So yeah. So how does this matter with conditional statements? So first let's talk about what are conditional statements. So conditional statements are a way of like doing something if something happens. So let's say if your age is older than 13, then you'd be called a teenager, or like the program will print teenager. So with the conditional statement, you can do that. So you can say if, and then let's say there's a variable called age, right, from before. And then if age is greater than 13 or equal to 13, because we need greater than or equal to, and then we put this semicolon to measure the stop of this, and then we put whatever inside the variable. So then we would put print, and then in parentheses you would put teenager. But if we were to say else, like if it's 13, then print teenager, else, so if you're not 13, then you could print not teenager, so not teen. But if you want more than two separate options, then you would have to use something called an else if. So instead of this else here, let's just say we move this down. Instead of that else here, I'll just write it here. We can write an else if block. So what does an else if block do? It's basically like the if, but it gives you a third opportunity. So let's say instead of age is greater than or equal to 13, and then instead of saying else, not teen, let's just say else if, we can just write another thing. So if age is less than or equal to, less than 13, we can just say print, and then you can just say kid instead. So now we have 3 if we were to count the else if. So we have 1 if age is greater than 13, it would say teenager. If it's less than 13, it would say print kid. And if it was anything else, then it would say not teen. But in reality, what I should do here is put this at 18, because past 18, you're not going to be a teenager. So yeah, this is basically how it works. No, you're supposed to put the 18 here, but you get the point of a comparison operator. It's basically a way of telling a computer to do something if something happens, and a way of saying if that doesn't happen, then you can do this, or there's also another thing. So it's basically a way for a program to make decisions. And the way that the if measures if it's true. So let's just go back for a second. So the way that if measures true is that it calculates this entire thing and measures if it's true or false. Those Boolean expressions. So if instead of all of this you were to just write true, then it would always be true. So if true, which would always be true, then it would print teenager. So every time if is called, or this function is called, it would print true. So after we're done with conditional statements, we can move on to our next topic, which is loops. Loops are a little hard to grasp, but there are 2 main types of loops. So there is a for loop and a while loop. A for loop and a while loop have a little bit of difference. So a while loop runs on a condition just like a conditional, but a for loop runs on like a preset thing. So if I in the range of that. So an example of a for loop would be I in range. So a range is basically the range of something. So range of, let's just say, -1 to 51. So as long as I is in the range of this, or in between these numbers, then then this loop would run. So let's just say print yay or something. You can literally put whatever you want. So yay. So right now for I in range minus 151, we can just put print yay because I is in the range of minus 51. And if it's not in this range, then this loop won't run. Unlike a for loop, which for me is harder to grasp, the while loop is so much easier because it's just like a conditional in the other one. And we've already learned about this in math class. So let's say if you want 15, right? So let's say if 15 is less than your age, let's say you're still in like middle school, so you'd print middle school or something. So while 15 is less than, if while, oh, that's age is greater than 15. So then let me fix that. So while 15 is less than age, then it would print middle schooler. Like every time the while loop is run, then this while loop would print middle schooler if your age is less than 15. So let's just say print middle schooler. Oh, I spelled that wrong. But yeah, you get the point. So while 15 is greater than age, then print middle schooler. So that's how a while loop works other than a for loop. So these two are different, but they are used for different things. So other than loops, variables, and conditional statements, what other things are there? So one of the most important things in all of computer science is what you would call a function. So what is a function, you might ask? So a function is basically a way to do a set of instructions. In a function of code. So you don't have to retype it all the time. You can just call the code and it will do the set of instructions for you. So let's say you want to bake a cookie, right? So bake a cookie. Then you would have to do all of this. But if you do it once and if you like put it in an instructions, then you can just like basically have a robot just do it for you whenever you call the robot to bake a cookie, in a way. So let's say you want to bake a cookie and you do it once, then whenever the bake a cookie function is called, then the robot can do it for you instead of you. Instead of doing that entire thing, a robot can do it for you. So you might ask, what's the point of this? You can just copy and paste and that would be so much easier. But there's this thing called cleaner code. Your code would be so much easier to understand and you can do whatever you can in code. So instead of like not knowing what your code is doing, you can just have the function name to bake a cookie and it would be so much easier to understand what is going on. So what are the parts of a function, you might ask? So, oh, that's not working. So the parts of a function include the function header, so function, and then the parts of a function include the function header, which is the first part of a function. So function header, which is basically the top line of a function. It's basically where the function is described and first started off. So let's say that same thing. So def, which is how you start a function, and then the function name, which is, let's just say, bake, and then whatever you can pass on. So let's say you want to pass on a variable to the function so the function can use the variable. So let's say cookie, and then whatever you do in the function, so the function body, and then the return statement. Return statement will return a baked cookie. So this is basically how a function works. And the function header in this case is the top line. This is the function header. The function name, however, is only this part, the bake part. So this is the name. And whatever you pass on is called the arguments. And this might be is the body. So where all the information is contained, including the return statement. So this is the function body. And then this return statement is the return statement. So now that the video is done, this is all we learned today. We learned about functions, we learned about loops, we learned about conditionals, and we learned about variables. So these are the main parts of coding basics. And that's the end for today's video. And I hope you guys have a great day. And subscribe and like, or like and subscribe. It's basically the opposite.